Hey kids, it's Jurassic James and Jurassic Explains looking at Alamosaurus. So today's video has been sponsored, not sponsored in the sense of like normal YouTube, but my friend Jim just bought me this dinosaur. And so he bought two, one for himself, one for myself, and I said thank you very much, and his wife Michelle delivered it, and I really appreciate that. So we're doing Alamosaurus, and I have not done it before because I've only had one species of this animal. The rest of these guys here are not Alamosaurids, but we'll go over it in just a second. So what is Alamosaurus? It's a titanosaur. And the idea is very simple. When you're thinking of sauropod long-necked dinosaurs, sauropodomorphs, particularly the more, what you traditionally imagine as a long-necked dinosaur, called Eusauropoda. So there's two main branches that people are familiar with. The first would be, this is a late Jurassic North American group. First, we have a Diplodocus from Safari 2017 and a Apatosaurus from Papo 2015. So these guys live in the late Jurassic North America, and they're a group called Diplodocus. So they have these they have usually they have shorter arms, longer legs, and their faces are very like horse-like, very long, elongated like that. The other branch are the Macronaria, macro meaning big, and naria is the nose hole, but again, it's higher up on these animals on the skull. And that includes our Brachiosaurus, like this 2012 Safari, and our Camarasaurus, this 2001 Safari, yeah. So these guys actually all live in the Northern Formation late Jurassic period. And so when you think of sauropod longnecks, there's two thoughts you have usually. It's going to be these guys that you really know really well in the late Jurassic, or the Cretaceous titanosaurs. Now, titanosaurs are closer to this group in the Macronaria than they are the Diplodocus group. And there's a whole line of debate and arguing and papers and stuff about some of the details. But the main thing with Alamosaurus makes it special is, at the end of the Jurassic period, we see a lot of the sauropods dying off. There are still a few survivors, like Plesiosaurus here in Texas, and Sauroposeidon, which is really well known. But what makes Alamosaurus so special is that it shows up at the very end or late Cretaceous, like the very last bit of the Maastrichtian, between 70 and 66 million years ago. And so the idea at that point is we thought sauropods were extinct in North America at that time. We still see them in South America, we still see them in Asia, Africa, they're on every continent in general. But by late Cretaceous, we start seeing the sauropods die off in North America. And so titanosaurs have their own subdivision and groups, but I will mention that we have, for example, the 2012 Collect A, Argentinosaurus. This is a parallel from Egypt, or in North Africa. It is 2009 Collect A. And of course, the Saltosaurus, which is 1996, last century, Safari. So these are late Cretaceous, so these are found in South America, Africa, and North America. So these are other titanosaurs. My biggest complaint about titanosaurs is that because, or the toys at least, is that the idea is that they're not as well known as like these guys, so they make smaller versions of them. It was hard to find what I have actually. And so I'm excited about this guy because this guy here is actually, this bigger specimen. It's a really good specimen. And so let's go to the science here real quick. Now, our Alamosaurus here is a Collect A 2011. This is my first Alamosaurus. And if you want to see Alamosaurus skeleton, if you're in Texas, the Pro Museum in Dallas has one. There's one dug up in Big Bend, Texas, actually, and it's a juvenile. And the irony here with the sauropods is that with most dinosaurs, we find a lot of adults and very few juveniles. Because juveniles are smaller, they can, when they die, the skeleton can be moved around a lot, scavengers and all that. With a sauropod, they're giant animals and they often fall apart. So we only find bits of these guys. We never find a whole animal by any chance, any stretch of the imagination. And so for a juvenile titanosaur, it's going to be smaller, so it's like around the size of the dinosaurs we find more complete, like the Tyrannosaurs or Triceratops or those kind of things. Finally, before I go, we'll get to the big guy. So the main thing to point out with this is, given that they have not found a skull, I can't comment on that much. They have found teeth associated with the skeleton, and so overall it meets most all the criteria. This one here. I mean, it's a long neck animal. Now, where the other ones have different arm and leg proportions, Titanosaurs are a little bit different because they're their own groups. But overall, this guy hits all the main points. But I think the main event is, of course, our PNSO figure. And I was telling the coworkers yesterday about how PNSO, how it's like, I like all, Safari, Collect A, Papo, I've mentioned them all in my videos, but I think PNSO is one of the highest, like, most complete, most detailed models, which is why they're more expensive on average. Thank you again, Jim. And so, here's the box. And let's see, his name is, what's his name? Oh, yes, it's Samuel the Alamosaurus. Oh, side note, the name Alamosaurus, the first, it's just good. I mean, I'm a Texan, so obviously our branding is world renowned because it's one thing when other people from America go to the state countries, they go, "Where are you from?" "Oh, America, from America." When you are from Texas, we say we're from Texas. And so people associate Alamosaurus with the Alamo itself. The truth is, it's not from the Alamo or the battle or like that. It's named after Alamo Formation. It was first discovered in the 1920s. So that's this rock layer formations like the Morrison Formation or the Hell Creek or Lance Formation. These are areas I mentioned before in my talks. And so the little rock layers that we have all the same animals in the same environment here, and there's different levels for different formations, right? I'm trying to add that to my my time scale actually on my website. But I will tell you my first Alamosaurus joke. I was teaching some kids, and I mentioned that when I first said Alamosaurus, I saw all of their heads like antenna go up kind of thing. And I said, yes, it fought in the Alamo. They put the Bowie knife in its mouth, and they put his head over the defensive wall, and just like did that into the soldiers, the Mexican soldiers, and they all laughed. And that was my first Alamosaurus joke. Anyway, main event. So with the official Scissors of Jurassic James, we are now going to free the beast. And as you know, at PNSO, they have this very nice thin layer of protective because the boxes, and like my friend Jim said, his wife told me that he keeps the boxes too. I do too. Down there, I have a whole set of PNSO boxes because one, if I have to move, it's great to have this container to hold the movement in, and three, it's the box's art itself actually. Even though it has language here that I don't know, but it's still pretty cool. So. Okay, so let's do this. For safety reasons, receive the scissors. I'll put them down here. Okay. There we go. Okay. So I'll put this here for safety. So with all PNSO figures, or at least a certain size scale, you'll get some kind of book that shows you, let's see, introduction items. It's like you would those Cabbage Patch Kids from 1900s, 1990s or 80s that you adopted this. So I am Samuel the Alamosaurus, and there's all these pictures of it and fun facts about it, which is really cool because, again, I buy dinosaur toys and I know already. Oh, that's this, and it's from here. It does that. This is great to teach kids and just adults who like to collect as well. So it's really cool there. Another thing to point out here, we have let's see, same thing. I think interesting. Oh, it's the new authentic education. Yeah, okay, so information about it as well. A lot of it is not in English. Oh, okay, here's the English one, and here's the non-English one. The main thing to point out is the poster. Beautiful. And so one feature on Titanosaurs that people often say, now I don't know if Alamosaurus had that, but we do know on many Titanosaurs you'll see, ooh, that was a horrible noise, you'll see scoots in their back. So for example, Saltosaurus, who some paleontologists question whether or not it's a real genus or a mixture of things. But the main thing is that you'll see armor on them. And so we associate, because it's really fun for kids, I mentioned Thyrea-4 are the shield bearers, the Ankylosaurus, the Stegosaurus. They're the armored dinosaurs. Then we get the Titanosaurs, and they have armor too. The idea behind this is we in paleontology defined those features before we really understood Titanosaurs. So we didn't see sauropods with armor on them until Titanosaurs were found. And so, or at least we were understood till they are today. And so that's one thing to point out too as far as definitions go, right? Okay, so we're gonna lift this. Okay, sorry, I'm getting excited. And so, if I've never told you this, sauropod, long necks are my favorite dinosaurs. And so it's in this container, even the little block here. There she goes again. I can't sing any more of that or I get flagged. Ah, oh, this is so cool. This is so, woohoo. Sorry, I'm getting excited. So this is beautiful. I mean, and if you don't know, these are hand-painted models. These guys here, oh my goodness. Okay, so, okay. Calm down. So the first thing to point out here is with Titanosaurs is the way they're shaped, right? So with the legs of any sauropod, early toys of sauropods give them really thick legs, you know. But if you look at an elephant, even today, the elephants, their legs aren't super thick. Their bodies are bigger and round. And with the titanosaurs or any sauropod, really, you see they often depict these really big, bulky bodies because we find the ribs kind of arch out like this. So finding, people don't think about that, but finding a rib of a fossil is really important because it tells you, particularly for herbivore, the girth of the animal. Like hadrosaur duckbills are very narrow ribs. Ceratopsians usually have wider ribs, right? So that gives you an indication on their feeding method. So titanosaurs have these like really wide, thick bodies like that. And so again, I mentioned the armor here. I'm not familiar with that in any papers, but another thing to point out is the neck. Now, when I was a boy, the necks were often like this. There's like this torso, the neck kind of just spouts out of like kind of like a giraffe in a sense. But now the recent interpretation of dinosaur reconstruction focuses on having a thicker neck. It's even heavier. Sorry. It makes sense that a titanosaur is so heavy. So yeah, so having a thicker neck, I've seen a lot of the pictures and papers because remember the skeleton of an animal is just that, the framing of the animal. So there's a lot of meat and muscle and air sacs and sauropods around that. And so that's one thing to point out why I think it's so accurate. Two, titanosaurs don't have exceptionally long tails. I mean, the diplodocids, these guys have these longer tails, longer necks. The Macronarian usually have shorter necks, which is one of the reasons why, shorter tails, why sorry, just looking at it. It's like, you know, it's like when you see somebody you find very attractive, you're like, oh my gosh, they're so, you know, like seeing a really cool dinosaur toy. It's like, yeah. Okay, so look at that, it's amazing. Anyway, focus, James. Focus. Okay, so the idea here is that looking at the Macronarian, they have shorter tails and they have longer necks. So, which is, again, there's way more to it than that, but that's kind of why they're put in the same grouping, among other things. And again, for a paleontologist, you know, where today we have like DNA for biology and zoology, or you can study other things too. For paleontology, we have to just look at the features of the animal, morphology for the most part. And so with the forelimbs, really cool is that people often know this. So when you look at a sauropod's hand, it's essentially this. And so you have your ulnar radius, these two bones here, you have your carpal in there, then your metacarpal here. And that's essentially what you're seeing right along there. That is the metacarpal, which is what we consider the hands and the bones in our hands. Now, they often lack these two phalanges, these 2 points here, and they keep this one. So they kind of walk like that. And of course, there's a big thumb spike coming out. And the thumb spike there is often thought to be for either aiding in mating or most likely also digging for water. And the idea behind that is, in general, is that like elephants, other modern animals who are really large, they need to stay cool. We think about dinosaurs. Larry Whitmer told me this, Dr. Whitmer. He was saying how we think about dinosaurs being warm-blooded and how that works physiologically, but we don't realize that once you're warm-blooded or endothermic, you now have a focus on keeping cool. Because when you're a big animal in the sun, there's not a lot of shade for you, so you're trying to keep cool. So elephants, for example, mud bathe and all that, right? And so for sauropods, that'll be very important. But two, they're migrating long distances for food and water. And so the idea is that if there's water, sometimes it may be a little bit of a drought, you can dig with this thumb spike to get deeper down the water. And so, oh man, this is so cool. Okay, so one thing with titanosaurs too, to make them lighter, the largest land mammal is Paraceratherium or Trichotherium. It's a large rhinoceros, which would have been about that tall probably to this guy. And that, you know, mammals, we have just thicker bones. Dinosaurs have hollow bones. So one thing to point out is that we wouldn't get land terrestrial mammals this big because we are bone structures designed based on our evolutionary history. You can only get really big if you're a whale because at that point you have water supporting you and all this stuff going on there. So the main thing with the Alamosaurus here is that they have hollow bones. All sauropods have hollow bones, and they have air sacs inside. So it makes them lighter overall compared to what they could be, and that's something to point out as well. Now the feet, I love it. Okay, the feet, I love it. Okay, so see how the toes like that. So most sauropods will have 3 clawed toes, and the other 2 will be usually nubbins. Sometimes they have a 4th clawed toe, but that's really unusual. But overall, their toes always kind of like turn to the side. Now we know that for 2 things. One, we find footprints of sauropods, and you see the front feet are like crescent shape, like a half moon. They're walking like that, and the back feet are like that. So you're seeing this kind of pattern too, and they're usually wider. And so Alamosaurus are showing that as well. I do know in, I think, Prehistoric Planet, a couple of the other Netflix or Apple TV documentaries, you're seeing more Alamosaurus is depicted, which brings me to its time and place. So I mentioned earlier that it is a Maastrichtian Late Cretaceous titanosaur found in southern North America. It is the last titanosaur, or sauropod, in North America that we know of. Its contemporaries should have, or would have been, your friend T-Rex, which, why that's so important to you, if you remember, in Jurassic Park 1, 1993, or if you were born after that time and you see the documentary, they go into the visitor center, and there's a T-Rex skeleton there, and it's a sauropod. And I remember at the time not being aware of Alamosaurus as a kid. I was like, well, what? Sauropods are all dead by then. Why is there a sauropod in the picture? So I assumed as a kid that they just put like a other sort, but it didn't look like a Brachiosaurus or a Diplodocus or a Patasaurus, right? But I don't know. I just assumed that it was something weird. And I realized later on in life, in my formal education, that, oh, that was an Alamosaurus skeleton because these two would have been contemporary. So Tyrannosaurus Rex is not the largest animal in this environment. People think it is actually. The duckbills get pretty equal size, like Edmontosaurus here. This is a Papo T-Rex, a very famous one. This is one of my favorite hadrosaurs. This is a Edmontosaurus from 1997, Schlee, German company. They don't make these anymore. I got this when I was a kid, not knowing how special it was. Here we have a Pachycephalosaurus, which is a 2020 safari. So essentially a Hell Creek formation, which is further north. We have Triceratops 2018 safari, and of course our friend Ankylosaurus 2018. Now there are many other smaller animals like dromaeosaurs, like raptors and ostrich dinosaurs and oviraptors are in this environment, but they don't make as many toys of them, so I can't really show them to you. But here we have a Quetzalcoatlus. It's a 2017 safari. So these guys, oh, this is okay. I'm getting excited again. Calm down, James. These guys are all contemporary. So if you were in West Texas in the Cretaceous period, you would see something that looks like this as your main fauna. And this, remember, this is where the big Quetzalcoatlus is found in West Texas. So this is a environmental, ecological system. So you're seeing these are living together. So when you're playing with your Alamosaurus, it's your first dinosaur to live with a sauropod, to be with T-Rex. Not Diplodocus, not Brachiosaurus, not Apatosaurus. Those guys died millions of years before T-Rex. And so that's what's so important. Now, one more thing to point out with Alamosaurus that's really weird or unusual or questionable is when and where it lived and why it lived where it lived. So I mentioned to you the Morthon Formation. So you have the late Jurassic 145 million years ago. You have all these guys, Apatosaurus, Diplodocus, Camarasaurus. We have Brachiosaurus here. We have Stegosaurus. This is a 2007 safari. And Allosaurus. This is a Mojo. Can't tell the year though. And so the idea here is that late Jurassic period, we have these guys and more. I've been over it before at Morthon. Then they die off. We have the early Cretaceous period, and in the early Cretaceous we do have more sauropods. Sauroposeidon is essentially a Brachiosaurus type. We have raptors like Dromaeosaurus, we have Deinonychus and Utahraptor, we have all coming Ankylosaurs. And so by the end of the late Cretaceous, end of early Cretaceous, we have those same kind of players. In the beginning of the late Cretaceous, now bear in mind, I'm putting a link below, the Cretaceous period is upper and lower, or late and early. And so each of the sections have 6 parts. So the Cretaceous is really 12 different subdivisions, right? So the first 6 are early Cretaceous period. If you want to see this again, go to the Cretaceous tab below. The late Cretaceous has 6 periods. So now the Maastrichtian is the very end of it, and we see a winding down of dinosaur diversity. Time before that's Campanian, and like all of like these guys here are Campanian. There's a lot of Campanian stuff. A lot of dinosaurs are found there. But they're slightly smaller than the Maastrichtian ones, so they're less appreciated. But before that period, the Campanian, the beginning of late Cretaceous North America and many of the world is really, really sparse. Like if you go to my webpage, I have the Cretaceous period subsections. You click on each one to see what critters live there. Most of the animals I have in those earlier late Cretaceous times from North America are just like, we know this animal was in the world this time, so I put it there as a figure. But there weren't dinosaurs known. And then all of a sudden, the Campanian, there's lots of species, and in the Maastrichtian, there's less species, and then they go extinct. And so Alamosaurus is really special in that sense because, like, where does he fit in? And of course, the number one argument is that it must have migrated into North America from somewhere else. Now, physically, family tree-wise, it has more in common with the sauropods of Asia. But we only find Alamosaurus so far in the southern hemisphere, southern part of North America, so Texas, New Mexico, that region, Utah, that area there. And so, but it does have something in common with sauropods from South America, which would make more sense because there's a lot of Titanosaurs in South America. But again, but remember, Panama connecting North and South America had not connected yet. It doesn't connect until 2.75 million years ago, roughly, which essentially is the Pliocene, which is when we have like humanoid things walking around in Africa and in Asia. And so the idea is that it would have had to cross an ocean, which is not out of the question for some animals. So seeing how small the ocean is. But again, the Panama connection, it fuses together in the Pliocene 2.7 million years ago, and it's broken again by the Panama Canal by Teddy Roosevelt in the 1900s. The point is that before that, the question is, where did Alamosaurus come from? Now, there's the three theories are: one, it came from Asia, migrated across, but there's less evidence because the northern part of that region, we don't find sauropod bones, so that's the least of the theories. The other theory would be that it came from South America, but again, crossing that little waterway between Panama and South America. That's kind of the leading theory, I understand. The last one, of course, it may have been a survivor of these North American sauropod descendants, and that we just have not found the animals between them and the sky. And so those are the three working theories. Now, what's really cool about this is that you're saying, James, you're giving me three different options. Well, the main thing to point out is we have it down to three options. We figured it's one of these three things. Now, has science told us before in the past some really cool, unusual thing we didn't think of have happened? Yes, that's happened before too. Oh, what happened there? So, but the idea here is we've narrowed down to these suspects. So, with that being said, keep studying, keep researching, and I'm going to appreciate this. I'm going to thank Jim one more time. This is a beautiful, it's like an Oscar. I just look at this and it's so, I have to go to work, but I want to just hold this dinosaur for the rest of the day. It's so cool. It's so amazing. I mean, the skin patterns, I mean, like I said, we have some sauropod skin impressions. And again, Titanosaurs often have these scoots. And these are little bumps here. Those are like football-sized scoots in some of these guys. They're really huge bone bits. And this is just a really awesome dinosaur. And I appreciate it and I love it. And I will see you guys later. Thank you for tuning in. Our next video, I think at this point, will be Mamichisaurus, because we got to get over that guy pretty soon. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you again, Jim. This is so cool. I don't want to go to work. I want to sit here and look at the teeth. Okay, so sauropod, look at okay, really close. So the teeth right there, sauropod teeth are like this in the front. They don't really have they don't have molars. They don't chew. So they strip the leaves and I'll swallow them whole, and they're really large guts. Will break the food up, and there's all kinds of multiple stomachs like a cow, and then there's like acids that break it down, and all kind of microbes and biomes we think they live in the animal's gut, because we have the same thing too. And so anyway, okay, I'm gonna just keep talking about this thing. The video's already too long. Look at the legs, look at the muscles in the legs. Look at okay, this is really cool. Okay, focus. So Alamosaurus, here's my two Alamosaurus. So, and actually this is a good representation that they found the really big adults fragments, and they found the juveniles who are about this proportion actually, and so they find a lot more juveniles than adults of this guy. So this is even better for my collection as a whole. So this is really cool, but I gotta stop talking now because reasons. Thank you again, Jim, and everyone for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you guys later.